What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we've been working some cases, hitting the beats, hitting the streets. I think I said enough cop lingo there. We are going to be reviewing Brook City by Blacklist Games, designed by Brady and Adam Sadler. And now I'm going to let Julie take it away and tell you more about the game itself.
It's a cooperative game that's for ages 14 and above. Plays 1 to 4 players in, according to the box, 45 minutes to 120 minutes. I think 60 minutes is a good average for at least for the different scenarios we've tried.
I think it really depends on the scenario, though. That last one took us close to 2 hours, but it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
That being said, let's tell you about the game. So this game uses the Sadler Brothers MDS, the modular deck system. So if you have played Street Masters, it is similar, but not exactly alike. What you're going to be doing is you take on a role of an officer that was recently transferred over to Brook City. You're going to be moving around the city, going through the streets, hitting different locations, stopping crimes, while also trying to solve the overall case and keep your suspect from getting away with the crime. Now, the suspect and the crimes don't necessarily connect. They're more just different characters that you're playing against. And I'll let Julie correct me if she's got anything else to add.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
All right. So what time is it then?
Well, it's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our drinks, and it's a stiff one. Grab our best friend.
It's time to take it to the table.
It is. So who do you think you're going to be in this game? There's quite a few different cops because we got the Kickstarter, so we got some nice stretch goals as well.
Probably a girl that hits hard.
So the one with the shotgun based on RoboCop?
Guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Now we're going to take a look at the components for Brook City. For those of you that know our videos, I'm going to start with some of the components that I wasn't able to include on camera, like the rule book. So on the back of the rule book, you do get a handy reference guide. And the rule book is definitely well put together. It shows you all the components, what you need. And I do really like the setup that makes it look like a cop's portfolio. So that's the rule book. That's one of the things I did not include on camera. Now, these are actually from the expansions, but I wanted to showcase them. You do get some dividers for the game, so you'll be able to separate all of your cards, just like what was provided in Street Masters. Now, the game does come with a box to sort all of your cards. However, it does not fit everything from the expansions. I do have some issues with that box. We'll take a look at it when I move on to show you the game board. For those of you that are wondering where the board is, well, we did not receive a game board in our copy from Blacklist Games. Waiting to hear a response from their customer service. Currently in the process of filming this over the weekend, but we did get the playmat, so I will be showcasing that as it has just a little bit more stuff than the game board. With that being said, let's dive into the rest of the components. Now here we have all of the different police officers. Now these top 8 are the ones that are included in the base game. We've got the 2 down here that are included from stretch goals. We also then have our rivals and allies, which are right here. And all of these are from the stretch goals. So let's take a look at the different officers. We've got Selena Gomez. I'm not sure who she represents. A fairly badass looking officer right there. We've got Wilson Fox, who is definitely an analog for Axel Foley. Now, not too sure. Might have just slid that down a little bit. Not too sure who Ricky Lou is, but thinking he may be Jackie Chan. We've got Meryl Jones. And for those of you that know RoboCop, it's definitely based on RoboCop's partner with the big padded vest. Now, can't remember her name now, unfortunately. Also, here we've got Riggs. Well, Gabe Fulton, clearly based on Mel Gibson's iconic character from Lethal Weapon. Maura Banks, who, once again, I'm not sure, but she definitely reminds me of Misty from Luke Cage. Renee Benson is one that I'm not too sure about. Very cool character, though I love the design. So you can see the headphones, the backpack. And Lester Nelson, who makes me think a little bit of Leslie Nielsen from Naked Gun 33 1/3, but from that art you might actually, well, I said 33 1/3, but the Naked Gun series, but also has a little bit of a Dirty Harry look. Now we'll take a look at our two stretch goal characters, Mallory Dawson, who is straight up out of Fargo, that's for sure. And then lastly we've got Morgan Hall, or Dexter, as you can see with the knife, trying to tell everyone to keep his secret. Now let's take a quick look at one of these cop cards. We're going to take a look at Renee Benson's. Now, every police officer's card has their stress level. If any officer gets their max stress, you will lose the game. You have some of their stats. And then you have what their ability is, what you're going to be testing it against. We'll talk about that quickly, and we'll showcase it more on how to play. And then the action that they're able to take during their turn, if they so choose to take it. So as you can see, all of our police officers have those stats. We also have here the cop turn card, which just gives you a nice breakdown as to what you're going to be doing during your turn. It's also double-sided with the criminal turn. What this is used for, as it's a co-op game, once you've completed your cop turn, flip it over to signal that you're done. Now here I've included Ricky Lou's deck, because every officer comes with a full deck of cards. I just want to show you what you can get. Tactics, which are cards that will go into play and will stay in your play area. They can be used during your phase. You can exhaust them to do different things. You have abilities, which may be played once. You have encounters, which will let you get an extra encounter during your turn, because you can encounter once with this, once with your action ability. And that's all of the different things. But every cop plays differently, so you're going to want to pay attention to their encounters, their abilities, as well as their tactics, because chaining them all together is how you're really going to be successful. Now we'll take a quick look at the allies and rivals. Now here we've got all of our different ally cards. So we've got Greg Guillermo Poncho, definitely straight out of Chips. Sandra Hart, right from Miss Congeniality. R.P. McMurphy and Dean Richmond. I don't recognize these guys, unfortunately. Eli Alonso, straight out of Training Day. Mark Yun, that is So Chowing and Fat from Hard Boiled. Slade Harper, who is also a villain. You do get an ally card for them. Gus Ferguson has an ally card. Mickey Scott, who's also a villain, does get an ally card. You can also use your regular BCPD, I almost said BPRD because of the Hellboy game. You can use all of them as allies as well. Then we've got a couple more from the stretch goals. K9, Henry Short, clearly based on Bond, and James Wong, who I'm not sure he's based on. But we also have the rival version where they're going to actually get in your way, and you're going to try to bust them, and they're really going to try to slow you down. So you can play as all of your guys as rivals as well as allies. So keep that in mind. And then we were just pointing out the different symbols here. These are the tests you're going to be doing to try to bust the different criminals. So you've got your reckless one. This is the more cautious approach. And this is your more technological one. I'm drawing a blank as to what the term is. But as long as you know the symbols, you're fine. And let's take a quick look at the miniatures. Sandra Hart, Poncho, Mark Yun, who I really wish had his own officer deck. I just absolutely love that look. We've got K9. Who doesn't want to have a dog for an ally? We've got Alonzo, James Wong, Henry Short, and just can't remember the names of these two guys. That's what happens when it's very long, but you know what? It almost looks like they're with seeing the Super Soaker now. I'm thinking they're based on Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood. So lots of fun references here. We've got the dice that you're going to be rolling here. You can see the different symbols. Crit. We've got a success and a hunch. Just a standard success and a hunch. These are the 4 symbols that will be showing up during the game. Now we also have the bases right here. Blue for your officers and allies if you want to base your allies. You've got red for your suspect, and then black just for any of the other miniatures. Now let's take a look at the different criminals. We've got 3 criminals that come in the base game and the stretch goals. Gus Ferguson, Mickey Scott, and Slade Harper. Now, each suspect has their own suspect miniatures. So here we see Gus's. Gus also has his own vehicle as well. And we'll talk a little bit about vehicles in a moment. And then each villain is also going to have their own thug. Now, there's only one type of thug, so it's not that difficult to set up. And what you'll have is you're going to have their criminal card, the resistances, a setup card here, as well as a crime, which will be represented by their thugs. Now, I'll pick up Slade Harper's ones just to showcase really what we're talking about. So here's the suspect card. Here is his crime. You'll see what happens when the crime activates. And then here's the instructions as to how to set up Slade. And then you'd flip it over on the other side, and it'll give you the operation that's always going to be ongoing during the course of the game. Now, let's place those back. And we'll quickly take a look at the miniature. So here's the miniature for Slade, your businessman, and he clearly works with a different level of crime, going for your white collar crime, not your blue collar crime. Then we've got the punk thugs for Mickey Scott, and let's take a look at our rockin' guy as well. So that's all the villain miniatures. Now, other stuff that's going to be related to our criminals are the asset tokens, which will represent different cards or things that they're going to be looking for. The setup will help explain what they are, or the cards in their criminal deck. Influence, which will be placed on crime, which causes negative effects for our heroes. And then we've got the hacking tokens, which we actually haven't played a scenario with hacking as of yet. Now, before we move too far away from the tokens, let's take a look at some of the stuff that's related to our cops. We've got the hunch tokens, which you gain when you roll a hunch, or maybe potentially from one of your allies, not your rivals, or even succeeding at stopping a crime. Now, these tokens can be used to turn that symbol into a success, or to gain that token. Here we've got the different stress tokens, comes in sets of 5 and 1. And then we've got the progress tokens right here, which is also 5 and 1. Now we also have the lead token, which will be placed on the board. Now leads are a different type of card. Basically, if you get near a lead, you can choose to interact with it for free. So you've got the location of it, and then you'll be able to use the ditch ability by discarding the card. And it has some fun flavor text about all of the different locations in the city. Now, we've covered our criminals, we've covered our leads. Let's, and this is getting away from me, let's take a look quickly at the cases. Well, actually, we're not going to look at the cases, we're just going to talk about the number that are in there. So, I love the way the cases look. There are 4 different cases that come in the base game. With one of these was, I believe, in the stretch goals, Jumpstart, Shadow Theories, The Slain Diplomat, and Jewel of the City. Now, each of them has their own setup card, but every case is going to include these 5 different clue tokens. In order to win the game, you have to acquire all of the clues. They are double-sided, with the black side meaning they're inactive and typically can be acquired by the cops, and the active side, which is just like a pale outline of their color. Now, lastly, we have the vehicles, and I really couldn't get all the vehicles on camera. So, for example, we've got the BCPD cruisers that your officers are going to be starting out with. So the one that I placed on camera here is the yellow one. You do get a total of 4 of them. So there's also red, green, and blue, 1 for each potential player. Then, because we got a lot of stretch goal content in the vehicles, for example, there's also the Kawasaki Ninja motorcycle. We have a nice classic Roadster, as well as your typical, contractor van as well. You've got 2 aquatic minis right here. We've got the yacht as well as the pontoon boat. Now these 2 minis can only be acquired at certain locations. We've got the motorcycle, your typical station wagon that takes me right back to National Lampoon's Vacation when I see that. We've got your classic roadster. And of course, the sports car. Now there are 2 of each of these vehicles in the game. And there is also this scooter. And before I forget to mention, I really like the clear base. Definitely gives it more of an illusion of being a vehicle. And the nice thing about the scooter is you can drive on it into locations. That's the cool thing about it, something you can't do with the other vehicles. Now just take a look at some of them so you can see all the different vehicles that are available in the game. We've got the different BCPD cruisers. You've got the rules for it, what you can do by exhausting it, what happens if you choose to ditch it, and some of them do give you some really good abilities. So keep in mind that with your cruiser, you get extra movement for each crime in your crime area. Now, we've just about taken a look at every component. Now, there's 2 components I did not get on camera as well. These are the off-duty cards. They represent challenges for your cops. They are optional. You can choose to take them. And if a cop is able to succeed at everything on this list, they then are able to ditch the card and gain the bonus. So it's a cool thing for the game. And then there are syndicate cards, 1 for each of the different criminals, and this is just a way to up the difficulty. They will give the Valkyries, the dopes, and the bankers different special abilities. So for example, a cop near a banker may discard 1 hunch to return it to the supply, or you can activate it, place 1 banker in a random location. If unable, the cops lose. So just some different things that you're able to do with the game, and those are the syndicate cards. Now, we've done it. We've taken a look at all the components for Brook City. Now, that took a while. There's definitely a ton of stuff that comes in the game. So now we're going to move on to take a look at the game board, the game mat, and we'll talk a little bit about the storage for the game. So keep it right here, and we'll be right back. Now we're taking a quick look at the game board for Brook City. Sorry, not the board. This is the play mat. Now, what you can see, which is different from the game board, is there is a spot for the criminal deck, in terms of the deck, the discard, the play area, a spot for the lead cards, as well as the active leads. Now, the board, the map itself is the same, it's just larger. What you can see, which is off camera below the river and more, is there's a spot for the case deck as well. Now, the board is set up into different areas. It's all lettered down the side and numbered across the top, meaning if something says spawn in F28, you place it there. Now, the way the board works, you'll notice that there's these spaces here that are divided up into 4 squares. Now, these are different streets. So, for example, if you're moving a car, that's 1 movement, that's 2 movement, that's 3 movement, moving along those spaces. And then if any cards talk about locations, these different areas are locations. So for example, these squares right here represent City Hall. These 4, we've got the Brook City BMV represented here, BCPD, and so on and so forth. Don't worry if you're half outside or inside, it doesn't matter. You're just focusing on these different squares. So this is the game board. You've seen a little bit how it works. Now, if we're talking about a mini occupies 1 square, whereas a car or a vehicle will occupy 2. Now, when it comes to water squares, they are divided the same way as the street squares. There is just a light blue line. Now, I'm not going to move the whole map to try to show you. It's fairly easy to figure out when you see the game board, although I'm not too happy with that, the blue lines on the map itself. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about before we move on to our how to play, and because of how large this is, I'm going to be trying a different setup than I have in a while. We're going to take a look at storage for Brook City. Now, what you can see right here is the game boss. I said boss? Game box with some of the minis out because I've set them aside for how to play. But as you'll notice, we've got plastic and even more plastic, and there is no place to set up the cards with the dividers. It just doesn't fit. Now you can use these spaces to place your cards, but it seems kind of ridiculous when you're provided with these nice card dividers and this box. What we've done for the moment is place this in one of the expansion boxes and store all the tokens in here, but it is still yet to be ideal in terms of storage. As you can see, we're ending up storing sort of a lot of dead air, so not happy about that. Be interesting to see how everything fits once we actually receive our game board, but that'll be in the near future. So we've done it. We've taken a look at the game mat and the play area. Now we're going to move stuff around, get set up for our how to play of Brook City. So keep it right here. And we're going to race off to a crime and be right back. Now we're going to take a look at how you set up Brook City. I'm using this area of the playmat, even though it's supposed to be for vehicles and the case play area, as my cop area, because the playmat is really not ideal for this. It takes up too much room, but it's all I've got right now. So we're going to do what we can to make it work. Now the first thing we're going to set up is the case. Now to do that, what we need to do is take our case cards, Shadow Theories. We're going to need to get the case setup card, which we have right here, and it's double-sided. So what you see is the setup for Shadow Theories is going to tell you to remove all the clue cards, create a conspiracy deck, and you're going to put one of them into play, and then you're going to shuffle the regular deck. Well, I've already separated out the clues, so we've got the regular case deck right here. I'm just going to shuffle that up, put in the case deck play area. Sorry that it's a little cut off, doing the best I can. We've got the 5 different clues. You can tell because it says clue up here, and it also has the different clue symbols on the bottom of the cards. And we shuffle these up. And what we then do is we're going to flip over one. We get Body in the Water, which is going to be N11. We place the clue token, the active side face up at N11. Next, we're going to look at setting up the leads. Now I'm going to have to go over and place it afterwards. But before that, we're just going to shuffle up the cards. Flip over the top card so we get the lead and try to make sure there's no glare, which is quick checkup at St. Thomas's Hospital, ditch, discard to stress. So I'm just going to place these cards right here for now. We take the lead token. Should move it over just to make sure I get the right spot. 11. C. And that's where we place the lead token. Now we're going to set up our officers so we can place them anywhere in the BCPD. We're also going to be using Selena Gomez as a ally. Now when she's placed in play as an ally, you place this card up, goes in your comp play area. You can exhaust the card to activate her. Now, as the setup is going very smoothly, and I don't want to talk too much about this, if she's set up as a rival, what'll then happen is she will go in her location, which is R24. You've got to try to bust her, because during the crime phase, that's right, they count as crimes, they will activate, and the cop furthest away from this figure would suffer 1 stress. So she'll give you a negative stress. There will be a negative effect that she will give to your police officer if she's set up as a rival in your crime area. Now, she's our ally. So we're going to put her there, and we set her up as an ally. We then can take our BCPD cruiser and place it where we can get into the vehicle. Next, we need to set up the crime deck. So what I've actually done here is I've taken out the cards that are required because it's just so far away. So we've got Slade Harper, who is our suspect. Now you can see what it takes to bust him. 3P means 3 successes per cop, his resistances, and his effects. So each time a cop would place a progress on Slade, they may instead remove 1 influence from an investor. Pretty cool. And then bust. If there is no investor in play, Slade loses 1 influence. Otherwise, each cop gains 2 hunches and draws a card. So busting him gives you good things. You can bust him an unlimited amount of times during the game. We'll just toss that into play over there. Now we need to follow his setup card. Now, I've already taken this out. This is what the setup is going to ask for. So what we need to do is we place Slade in the Nightscape Theater, F20. We then search the criminal deck for an investor card and put it into play, shuffle the criminal deck, and then flip this card. So we flip the card over. We get an explanation of what happens during the criminal phase. We'll take a closer look at that when this operation activates. We then have the investor, which is Jack Elmore. He's an asset. We see what it takes to bust him, his resistance is here, and what happens if he activates during the criminal phase. This will also go into the criminal play area. The location on the card was F6, so we take the asset token and we will place it at F6, Liberty Bank. Now, we've got the rest of the criminal deck here, so we're going to shuffle it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and place the criminal deck and the asset deck in the proper spots on, not the asset deck, sorry, the leads in the proper spot on the game mat. We've got our cards here. I also placed Slade at F20 as I neglected to do so as when I set up a suspect card. So everyone is now in position. The last thing I want to point out, we've got our vehicles right here in case we do need to commandeer a vehicle. Then we've got minis over on that side of the board. And there you have it. We've set up Brook City. So with that being said, we're going to hop in our cruiser and get started with our police officer's turn. Now we're going to teach you how to play Brook City. Now, how we're going to do that is we're going to go through the entire cop turn, and then we're going to take a quick cut and go through the criminal turn and the case turn. So for the cop turn, we start with the dispatch phase. We refresh cards in our play area and then draw 1 criminal card. Now, as it's the first phase, we have nothing exhausted, nothing to refresh. So we draw a criminal card, which I've already done. We've got the corporate holdings. The crime is a takeover, and we're going to be placing this miniature at P14. So this goes up here, which would be our crime area. Going to reach over and grab a mini. Then we place it in P14. Now, we have our act phase. Now, during the act phase, we can do any of these 3 things in any order we want. We have a move step, which is move 3 or discard 1 stress. We have a card step, which we can play 1 card or draw 1 card. We have the action step, which is perform one of the following. We can do a move action, which is an extra move action, a card action, which means triggering the action effect on a card, which is typically the one from your police officer. There's a hunch action where you gain a hunch token, and an interact action where you would activate an ability on a card. So for example, this clue token right here, Body and Water, has an activate effect, which would be triggered by an interact action. That's the only way to trigger it. Now, we also have an ally in play. So let's take a look at how we can use our ally. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to exhaust our ally. And let's take a look at her quickly. So each time this ally busts a target, you may resolve the prepared effect on a tactic card you control. Very cool. And she has an exhaust ability, which means this ally may move 3 and encounter with 2 die a target up to 5 spaces away. So we've exhausted her. We've got that acid over there. So let's move to take it out. 1, 2, 3. All right, so as you can see, the acid is within 5 spaces. Now don't worry about line of sight. There are no line of sight rules in this game. It just says an asset within 5 spaces, which this qualifies for. So I'm going to reach over and grab the asset Jack Elmore. Let's bring it just into a place where you can see it. What we're then going to do is roll our 2 dice and see what we get here. So we roll, we get 2 successes and a hunch. Now, she has the walkie-talkie effect. So that's what her attack is. We take a look at his resistance. Jack Elmore has a resistance of 1, meaning we're going to place 1 progress on this. We also gain a hunch token. Now this is where the rules are unclear whether this hunch token would go on Selena Gomez or on Ricky Lou. When we played Street Masters, they would go directly on the ally and not on the officer. So in this case, I am going to put it on the ally. Now, if the Sadler brothers or anyone else involved with the game does happen to see our review on how to play, please feel free to correct me down below in the comments so I can add something to the video. Now we will place 1 progress on Jack Elmore. And we'll place a hunch token on Selena Gomez. Now we've used our ally, and allies really do make the game a lot easier. If you're just running around by yourself, it can be more difficult. So far, Julie and I have only played the game with allies, but it's up to you if you'd like to use them in that case. So we have Ricky Lou's turn, and what are we going to do? Well, we need to get towards this clue. We also need to bust that guy. So we're going to use our police cruiser. Now, how do we do that? As a free action, we're able to get in and out of our cruiser between each and everything that we're going to be doing during our turn, each of the different steps. So essentially, you can get in and out of your cruiser about 3 times. You can also have encounters in with people, well, in your cruiser as well. So just keep that in mind. As a special ability, while there is a crime in your area, you may move an extra space for each crime. You can also ditch the car, meaning discard the card, and then move to any space. So now what I'm going to do is move my miniature into the car, and we're going to move, and you can only move orthogonally, so in right angles. So I'm going to move 1, 2, 3. Now where I move, whether it's here or here, does not matter. Just to give you an example, those spaces can become blocked. If a space is like this, I'm not able to move through a blocked space. Now, let's just figure out where she was. 1, 2, 3, sorry. Now, certain enemies may be able to move through blocked spaces. So we've moved towards the crime. We are going to get out of the car. And you know what? There's something that I neglected to do that was part of the setup. I do apologize. We have to draw 4 cards to have our starting hand. So I'll add a quick note to the setup video that the last thing we need to do is have a starting hand of 4 cards. Now we can see what we've got. We've got our tactics. We've got encounters. Now let's see what we want to do. I'm going to play a tactic because typically getting tactics into play is really going to make your character stronger, and I really like this one. Always at the ready. This one means before a cop's encounter, that cop gains +1 die, which is always very good. Now we could have played for our card step an encounter, meaning we get to encounter this character or that crime twice by doing this and then taking the action step. But in this case, we have played a card. So I'm going to just place these cards down into my play area. I will then exhaust, always at the ready. I then take my 3 dice, but wait, you know what? I really want to bust this crime. Ricky Lou's ability with inner focus when you have your encounter, you may discard one card from your hand to get an extra die. I love all my tactics. We're going to get rid of following up. Discarded. We're going to take 4 dice and let's roll and see what happens. Well, not the best. However, we have the police hat. We have 1, 2, we have 3 successes. So unfortunately, we will not be able to bust a criminal. We'll place 2 successes on him. We then also have 2 hunch tokens, meaning we will gain 2 hunch tokens, which we'll place, well, not going to place on our card. Can't see much. We're going to place near our card. Next is the crime phase. What we do in the crime phase is we activate each card in our crime area, not the criminal crime area. So that means we have to activate corporate holdings. So when we take a look at this, either place 1 influence on this card or discard 1 card you control. Then if there's 3 more influence on this card, discard 3 influence from the card and it goes to Slade, which we don't want. Slade's victory condition, which I neglected to read when we were setting up the syndicate, is that he wins if he gains 4 influence. I don't want to get rid of my tactic. We're going to place an influence on that card, and that ends the crime phase. We then go into a draw phase where we draw a new card, add it to our hand. We've got assess the situation. Our hand size is now back up to 3. And that is the end of our turn. We'll flip over the card, symbolizing we are now into the criminal and case phases. So we're going to just move the die out of here. And we're going to take a quick cut as we get ready to see how the criminals will respond to us messing with their dealings. Now, let's resolve the criminal turn and the case turn. So how do we do that? We're going to activate all the cards that were up in the criminal area from left to right. I've brought them down here. We're going to start with Slade. As you can see, no activate effect on his card. So I'm just going to place him back in the criminal area. We then have the funding the syndicate. So this gives us our loss instructions and the activate instructions here. If an investor has 3 influence on it, discard 3 influence from that card, and then Slade will gain 1. If Slade does not gain an influence that way, the cop must either discard a hunch or suffer 1 stress. And that's not a cop, it's each cop, sorry. So we'll place this back in the criminal play area. As it's early on in the game, Ricky Lou is just going to suffer a stress. We don't want to lose any of our hunches. Lastly, we had Jake Elsmore. We had a progress token on it. I'll just put it down here for now. So what does Jake say? Move all influence from each takeover card to this card. If no influence was moved this way, place 1 influence on the card. Well, we'll put him back now. And we'll have to move 1 influence from corporate holdings. The reason for that is, as you can see, type of crime, it is a takeover crime, meaning that it gets moved. Now, we've resolved the criminal turn. It is now the case turn. So what we need to do is go through everything in the case area and activate the cards. Now, I did make a slight mistake when I was talking about the interact actions. You will have seen a pop-up on the video correcting that when I was talking about the cop phase. The only way you don't interact with the activate ability, this just happens during the case turn. So we move left to right. So we may choose a cop. That cop may discard a lead to take control of 1 case card, of 1 card in the case discard pile and exhaust it. Now, there is nothing in the case discard pile, which would be over here, so we can't do it. But to give you an example, we'll take a look at the top card. So if this was there, we would gain control of this as we need to acquire these symbols to acquire the clue, and we can then take it and place it in our area. As that's not the case, this is actually going to be the card that we draw next. During the draw phase, it says, each cop that controls a clue token suffers 1 stress. Each cop that controls no clue tokens suffers 2 stress. So we'll place that in the discard, and unfortunately, we'll then take 2 stress. Next, we flip over the card and we are back at our cop turn. Once again, we would then go into the dispatch phase, which is almost part of like, sorry, I skipped over the end phase a little bit. During the end phase, we're going to re-ready all of our exhausted cards. Then it's the dispatch phase, which we draw another crime, which is retail pressure at B20. We'll then place this guy at B20. And we're ready to act again. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick cut. We're going to go through one more turn of the act phase for the police officers, as I just want to showcase what will happen if you engage a clue, well, interact with a clue or encounter one, depending on the word you want to use. And I also want to show you how you can get potentially more encounters in a turn. So keep it right here. We're going to keep on busting crime. And we are now at our last part of our how to play. And what I'm doing is I'm actually going to discard this card and swap it for following up. The reason why is I want to show how you can do multiple things during a turn. So we will just pretend that this was actually the card that I drew on my first turn. Easiest thing to do right now actually would be to activate our ally Selena Gomez. She doesn't need to move, but if we want to get closer to, for example, another enemy, well, this is actually a good example to showcase this. So this ally may move up to 3 and encounter a target up to 5 spaces away. You don't have to move 3, but the movement is the first thing that you're going to do because it's move, then encounter. So anywhere along here is 5 spaces away. So we can just move, you know, a little closer to some other stuff. We're then going to take our die. We're going to roll the 2 dice. We get 2 successes. Once again, he's resistant by 1. I'm not going to bring the card over. We saw it last turn. And we place the progress token. Now, if she'd successfully busted the criminal, meaning we had 3 progress, we'd have been able to draw a card triggering our tactic. So let's move over to, we've got our move step, card step, and action step. And let's do something interesting right now. So with regards to our card step, we're actually going to play following up, which lets us have an encounter, and then we may choose a cop to draw 1 card. So we're going to have our encounter. We're the only cop. We'll draw a card. So we'll add another card to our hand with the martial arts training. So we can encounter this guy with 2 dice. We can also use always at the ready to make sure we actually have 3 dice during this encounter. Let's roll and see what we get. And we get a crit. Now when you get a crit, what happens is you roll another die. And this counts as a success. So we've got 3 successes, more than enough to stop the corporate holding, stop the takeover. We will remove all the progress tokens. The corporate holdings goes into the criminal discard pile. Now, if you ever run out of cards, case deck, criminal deck, you will be reshuffling your cards. Same thing with your character cards. And that is our card phase. We discard this, meaning we still have a movement and an action phase. So we'll get rid of this mini, just move them off camera. Take this back. Now we can get in our car. We don't have to. We can move 1, 2, 3 and go right to encountering this clue. So we've taken our movement, and this is actually kind of cool because there's something else that we can then do during our turn, which I'll probably do just to show you what it is. So we want to encounter this clue. We're now going to trigger our action step. We get our 2 dice. We may discard a card, as we've got 2 martial arts training cards. We'll discard one of those so that we have 3 dice. And let's activate the clue. So we encounter the clue. We get 3 successes. The clue is resistant by 1, meaning we could potentially flip it over and acquire it right away. So actually, you know what? Let's do that. We have 3 successes. We'll spend the hunch, convert one of those into a success. This becomes inactive, meaning It can now be acquired as per the rules on Shadow Theory. This card then gets removed from the game, but before that, after encountering this card, choose a cop to dig deeper. Now, digging deeper means we can flip over a card based on the number of hunch tokens we have and take this card and put it into play exhausted. You'll notice that when we exhaust it gives us an ability, so we will have acquired our first case card by doing that. So this card is now out of the game. We then flip over, reveal the next one, which is J13. Which is right in the police building. And we've gone ahead and done everything that we needed. However, we're far away from our car. Well, guess what? We can commandeer vehicles. Now, I always place these at the bottom as the boats can only be commandeered in special locations. The docks for the yacht. Not the docks, sorry, the yacht club for the yacht, obviously. The docks for the skimmer. But we can commandeer a new vehicle, but we'd have to discard our old one. So that would go off the board. We then reveal what we get. And we get the Quixini, the civilian sports car. We can then use its ability. So while driving this vehicle, you can move 2. And just note here, you can see the gun symbol. You can have encounters while you are driving. So let's go and grab that car, and we can place our character in the car. Just a little farther away than I would have liked. So we have commandeered a vehicle. We are now in the sports car, and on our next turn we may activate it. Now what we're going to have to do is go through the crime phase. Now just a quick example, I'm going to move this over, and I know I showcased it a little bit during setup, but if Selena Gomez was a rival, this would be when she would activate. She'd be in her apartment, and she would give, following her activate ability, which I showcased, the cop that's farthest away takes 1 stress. So she becomes just very much an annoyance. This is just to show when she would activate. Now this is a little separate. I'll put it over here. So we go through activating everything, then going through our draw phase. I'm not going to do it. This is just sort of a quick summary. Then we flip it over and we once again go through the criminal phase. And that's it. And that's how you play Brook City. So keep it right here as I'm going to drive off in my Quixini and join Julie for a review of the game. So Brook City, what did you think of the game?
I really enjoyed it. I mean, you've been talking this game up since, you backed it.
Since I backed it?
Since you backed it. You're like, you're going to like this game. You're going to like this game. And sometimes I get worried when you say I'm going to like a game so much because sometimes it's a real letdown.
Hey, well, you really like Street Masters. So I knew that with the similar system and that 80s cop action.
Well, I was going to say, Street Masters wasn't really my cup of tea when it comes to the IP. It's not really, it's more your thing.
But you like the gameplay.
The game system was fun. In this case, yes, I did get a character that I didn't want to change afterwards because I liked her abilities. Should I have tried other characters afterwards? Maybe, but she was a lot of fun because she was good at packing on the stress and it just made her better. And, I felt that it helped with the style of play. I love the fact that we did 3 different missions and it was 3 different styles of play. I'm not sure I loved it when we first sat down. I'm like, okay, it's different. So you really have to, the game, it definitely adds replayability because it's very different.
And even when you're playing against different villains, just our recommendation. So I'm trying to remember what the name of the last case was we played. Jumpstart, the Slain Diplomat. It was the I'm drawing a blank on the name. The conspiracy one playing against the criminal guy. I definitely think we both recommend it because it really gave us a lot of time to dive into like the different aspects of Brook City. Because the case was so long, and with that combination with the criminal, we had to move around the map a lot, and it was just kind of really neat to see you finally commandeering a boat and then commandeering a car and doing some stuff that we hadn't done in other scenarios. So try that one out.
I enjoy the I enjoyed the way that you have different cards and tactics that allow you to get different powers basically, or different things that you can do, and that you're still rolling dice. That doesn't seem that hard. Like, it doesn't seem that a success is going to be incredibly difficult.
Unlike Kick-Ass.
But that still adds an element of, there's a possibility that you don't roll a success.
No, and we definitely had some rolls where even because of the successes we got, they just wasn't enough to overpower the criminals.
Yeah. I do say I do enjoy rolling. Like, one turn I rolled 3 crit, and I was like, whoa!
I was going to ask you, what did you think about the fact that we were busting criminals and there wasn't really life in this? There's stress, and it's more just about working the job. Is that something that you liked? I thought that was very different.
I thought it was different, and I like that there's things you can do to reduce stress, because that's real life as well. Yeah. And I like that some characters are better dealing with stress than others, because that's real life as well. And I thought that was great. I mean, I enjoyed... I mean, we have the playmat. Don't know what the game board looks like, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately, at the time of this recording, we still do not have the game board. That being said, I'm still recording. We are recording this not that long after we recorded the unboxing, so we've yet to hear back from Blacklist Games. Once we've heard a response, I will add something down in the comments or in the video description.
So I like the playmat. I think it's fun to have out. It's huge. I don't know how transportable it is to game night at other people's houses. Although I think I'll let you. I know you have comments about the game packaging, but I'll let you deal with that. I'm going to go into, if you don't mind. I mean, I think I talked about the style of play and the gameplay. I really enjoyed that. As for the cards themselves, I thought the art. It was fun to be able to look at the art and try to guess, which character from what movie it was. The first one you played was based on Axel from Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, it was Axel. I think it's Axel Foley, and he was Wilson Fox, referencing his character at Wally World. Yeah, deep dives here.
And then the next character you played was Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon.
Yes.
And then the last character you played, I didn't know who that was.
I'm not sure if he's based on a regular character, but the only thing I could almost think of the way he plays, and the character name and his style, knowing martial arts, is Ricky Lou. So he could be Jackie Chan. Okay. So that's kind of what I started to think of afterwards, especially with his abilities to sort of discard cards, make some crazy actions, and all of his abilities were based on his tactics. Probably my favorite character to play so far.
Yeah, so it was fun to be able to commandeer a boat and commandeer another car that we, as you mentioned, we did in the last the last campaign we did. And I like the art, the way it's set up. This game is easy to read and easy to understand. I did find the cards a little bit thin. I like to shuffle cards well, and I was a little afraid to damage them.
So is this a game that I'm going to need to sleeve at some point?
We'll see. I mean, you have a lot of expansion, so it's possible.
Okay, well, there's 406 cards in the base box plus the expansion, so guess I know what I'm buying once we figure out a new storage system for this.
From what I can tell from the rule book, and I'll let you comment the rule book, it seems from your lack of swearing that this rule book probably was pretty well set up.
Yes, the rule book is fairly well set up. There is a gigantic hole in the rule book, though, compared to the Street Masters rule book. The allies and rivals aren't nearly as well described and explained as they are in Street Masters. One thing was quite clear when we were playing Street Masters is the defense tokens belong to your allies or rivals. Well, I don't believe the rivals could get the defense tokens, but more for the allies. And in this case, there was no description as to what to do with the hunches for the other characters, and if those allies do count as a full cop. I don't believe they do. They definitely did not have a similar rule like that in Street Masters, but that being said, definitely needed some clarification there. Other than that, everything was definitely more on the straightforward side than anything else.
Yeah, so I mean, I like I said, I don't think I have anything more to add to the IP itself. I enjoy playing cops. So I watch enough cop shows.
So many cop shows. So many cop shows. I think almost all of them on TV. Our favorite is The Rookie. So if there's an expansion, please put The Rookie in this game.
Well, and it's been renewed for a second season, so you have comments about the way that this is boxed up.
So I'm going to start with my biggest negative. This is by far the worst storage setup I have ever seen in a game, bar none.
Don't hold back, Jason.
No, this is just terrible. So for those of you that saw the unboxing, or if you'd like to go back, go down into the timestamp so you can see the components, because during my showcasing of the components, I do show how with the plastic trays in the box, none of your cards, like the card divider setup that they have, which is what they use in Street Masters, fits in any of the plastic. Now, you can store the cards just in the standard plastic that they have, but they provide you this really cool, nice organizational system that doesn't work. They give you a box to use for it. Now you can take that box and put in the stretch goals, but if you're buying the base Brook City, then you don't have that, and it doesn't fit in this box. And then when you're looking through all of the other expansions, and you will see our forthcoming unboxing video for the expansion, there is just a lot of dead air in a lot of the boxes, and just quite frankly, a ton of wasted space. Whereas Street Masters was very well organized, you had a great spot to place your miniatures and all your cards. I really enjoyed it. I mean, we've got it all back here. It's still fairly well organized. I could even condense it more, just kept it like that because of the reviews that we're going to do. With regards to Brook City, I didn't want to keep all the small boxes, and I've done my best to condense everything. And even with that, like, the box hardly weighs a thing because there's really not that much in there right now. I've got a bunch of the stuff in another box. The system it really wasn't well designed. And if you go out there, take a look at Facebook, Boardgame, you can see a ton of people coming up with these great storage solutions for the game. And that's cool if you like doing it yourself, but was very, very disappointed comparing it to the previous release. Now, I do apologize if anyone feels like we're talking about Street Masters and the way things were done a lot. It's just that with this being Blacklist's second project, being based on the same system as that game, I really expected them to have, a similar storage and packaging system, and that's not at all what we're getting in Brook City. Now, that being said, let's move on to the positives. So, got that out of me, feeling a lot better. I really love this game. I wasn't sure. I talked to some of my gamer friends about it. They were asking me, why go on Brook City? It plays similar to Street Masters, it's using that same system. And while you're using the same system, the criminal and clue deck and how you're interacting with the game using the MDS system is so different from their previous incarnation of it that it feels like a whole new game.
It does.
You definitely are doing the same thing with regards to chaining your abilities together and trying to do as much as you possibly can during your turn, and that's definitely what I was doing with Ricky Lou. So far, my favorite character. He seems to be almost a little bit unbalanced in terms of how good he got at the end of the game with all of his tactic cards in play. And the fact that we're busting criminals, the fact that sometimes you don't get any bonus from beating them, the other times that when you bust them, you get some really big bonuses. It's a lot of fun. I do love the way that the criminal deck interacts. You have to go through the cards specifically, so be careful, set them up properly. I know when we were playing with Guy, there was a little bit of confusion as to where his suspect card would go on the board, because you are going to be activating everything, like left to right, right to left, depending on what you're activating. And I think we both really enjoy the fact that the clues are really how the scenarios work. Mm-hmm. And each time it's entirely different. Like, don't really expect to be drawing clues from the deck. They're going to be showing up in the case play area, and you're going to be interacting with them in a different way every single time. And one of the things that I do like about the playmat is it really gives you a nice spot for the criminal deck and the case deck, which otherwise would be just near the game board. Not so bad when you're traveling for a game night, but absolutely love having the game mat for playing here at home.
It's a little big for my short arms, but
yeah, we do have to stand up sometimes to pick up the cards. But if you're playing, 4 players with, or we could just be sitting on opposite sides, but we like to sit next to each other, it would be very easy to manage. So overall, I have to say, really happy with Brook City. I'm impressed as to how they have adapted this MDS system to this cop environment, and I'm looking forward to see them taking a stab at the fantasy campaign style dungeon crawl, Julie's favorite type of game, with the forthcoming Alter Quest. The only downside I would have to say that I did not like about the components is the miniatures, at least some of the stuff with regards to the cars, the mirrors are a little fragile. They're fairly difficult to get out of the protective packaging, and not a lot of detail to the miniatures compared to something like Hellboy that we have been playing with recently. But overall, still good miniatures for a game. It's not the tractor. Just don't expect like that high level of detail that you're going to get out of like Mantic or Monolith. That's not what you're getting in this game. And I do want to reiterate, just because Julie said it, the caricatures are fun. The allies and the rivals are a really cool aspect of the game. And one thing I just want to throw out.
That's right, my ally was a James Bond knockoff.
Yes, he was. And I want to throw out there for everyone, we've played the games using just allies so far. We wanted to go through as much content as possible in a reasonable amount of time. I've actually played with 3 different characters. They've all played differently. The allies all play differently as well. Now we've succeeded at the game without too much difficulty, largely thanks to the allies, but that is a nice, difficulty variance. If you like playing with allies but want it to be more difficult, take some allies, take some rivals as well. I mean, you're going to have rival cops that are potentially trying to bust the case before you. If I'm reading it right, we haven't played with the rivals, so I might be getting that wrong. But lots of replayability, even with just the 4 cases, lots of different combinations, and we got Delta Keys back there. I've got all of the expansions in that box, so we've got plenty more cops and robbers to take down. So
there's one other little negative thing I have to say about the game, just from the playmat perspective. I thought it was pretty hard to read the names of the locations on the mat itself.
That's a valid point, not taken away. I just want to let you know, because we haven't used that many playmats for a game board. It is a typical...
I was going to say, I know it's typical of playmats. They also tend to be darker. This one is fairly dark, but I did find it was pretty hard to read the names of the...
No, and I agree with you. If it wasn't for the fact that it says use B17 or A20 or Q28... I think it would have been a lot more difficult with the playmat if it was like, pick a square in, Hawk's Pub. It would have been like, where's Hawk's Pub?
Yeah. The different, having the squares definitely made it easier. And it's not a big complaint. It's just,
No, and the playmat is an extra component. It's not the standard component.
Yep.
I would have liked to have played with the standard component, but still waiting.
Okay. So, rating time.
I'll let you go first. You're the cop enthusiast.
I think surprisingly, I'm going to say this is an 8.
This is an 8. Wow. I think did you give Stream Masters an 8? I can't remember. I think it was 7.5 or an 8. So I guess that means you like this system of game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give this game an 8. I'll be honest, just for the storage reasons, I was tempted to give it a 7, but we've had so much fun playing the game and going through the last case and really getting to get that full Brook City experience.
Oh, he was on a rampage on that last case. He was trying to do everything everywhere. He felt like Superman, I think.
I was like Super Cop. So Ricky Lou was definitely Jackie Chan, because at the end there it was kind of like, all right, I bust this criminal, then I can move this far, and then I can move, and then I run even farther, and then I can bust this criminal in the face. Yeah, actually.
Hold on, Julie. I'm going to come save the day. That way you just have one punch to put.
Hey. That was to win the case.
Yes.
And I spent most of the beginning of the game not doing anything cool.
Okay. So, you gave it an 8.
I gave it an 8.
Did you have anything else to add?
No, that's definitely everything that I would add. I think Brook City is a solid game. It's very different. If we hadn't stressed that enough, it doesn't feel like any other cooperative game that we've played, despite the fact that it plays a lot like Stream Master. They've done a very good job of capturing the theme in here.
Okay, so on that note, as always, like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit that notification button so you'll know when we have new content for you. Jason, what about social media?
Take a look down below in the video description to find all of our social media feeds. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're on all of them. Also, popping up in front of us, shortly you're going to see links to subscribe as well as to our not our next video, our previously released videos. It could be our next video as well. You never know what's going to be on there because we change it up over time. And now what time is it, Julie?
Time to grab our drinks.
We're grabbing our drinks, grabbing our best friend.
We gotta keep playing games.
Keep playing games. We're going to keep busting robbers.
I have a feeling in the not too distant future, I'm going to be playing Delta Keys.
I noticed that. The moment you saw that it was like Miami Vice, and I'm like, she's going to just make me play that. And I was like, what am I complaining about? That's awesome.